Welcome back to the Close of Play podcast.
This is it. This is Close of Play. I'm Ollie.
And I'm Craig.
We're your hosts. Enjoy this episode. Make sure you
like and subscribe.
See you soon.
Enjoy. 3, 2, 1.
There we are.
Close of Play.
Here we go. Close of Play. We got a very special guest on this morning. Morning, Dylan.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out. I know just from our brief conversation before this, how busy you are and how busy you've made yourself with all these new things that are happening.
I was supposed to be retiring from the university back in August, and I don't think I've ever been so busy my entire working life.
This is the busiest you've ever been, is it?
Yeah, it is.
We've bumped into each other kind of over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And obviously you know my business's journey, and you've been an integral part to that I appreciate. But keen to kind of know your story and kind of how you started and
for the listeners' sake, tell us about what you do and
how it started, because you're doing all these crazy things now.
Yeah, well, I've been, I suppose my main job, I've been a professor of entrepreneurship for 26 years. I've recently left the University of South Wales because my business interests were becoming a bit too much. And to be honest with you, I just felt that, what I was trying to achieve, I wasn't getting the traction I needed. And sometimes you've got to make that decision that you just can't stay in a job that's not making you happy, that's not fulfilled, that you're not getting the support for. Yeah.
How long were you at university for?
I've been in the university sector since
quite a while.
Well, since I was 18.
Yeah,
because
just stayed there.
I've just stayed there. I should have got a job somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And then, just getting on with that. So that's been my main job. I'll give you potted history. So I was born in Northwest Wales, born in Bangor, brought up in Pwllheli, which is a small town of 4,000 people, tourist. Sort of a market town that's mainly tourism. It used to have a large Butlins that's all of us kids used to work in.
Nice.
With 10,000 people living there. The town is 4,000, you can imagine.
Yeah, 6,000 people
every
coming
Wednesday when they come into the local market. Then I went to university at Cardiff to do physics, of all things. I had this dream of becoming an astronomer and sitting on top of a mountain in Hawaii, just looking at the stars. So after a year of doing that, physics, that dream went quickly, because it's not about looking at stars. It's a lot of maths.
I was going to say
a lot of maths.
Easy to run away with it in that part of the world, though, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. So so I did that for 3 years. Was going to do a PhD in semiconductor physics, of all things.
That sounds really exciting.
I know a bit about this.
Well,
you two can chat away.
The irony is, of course, now one of the big industries for Southeast Wales is compound semiconductors, which is they're saying is going to be the big industry, one of the few things in Wales we're really world class at.
We have one locally in Newport.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got
the future of that is unknown at the moment.
Well, the Newport wafer fab. We can talk about that later if you want. So then I did a master's in industrial strategy. Then went to do a PhD in technology entrepreneurship. I think it was the first ever PhD in technology entrepreneurship in the UK. Nice. Which great, because I got to interview about 100 entrepreneurs. That really got me into it.
But that's almost the starting point for the whole
it was.
entrepreneur
Well, both my
journey.
mum and dad had their own businesses, and a lot of my friends had, they come from family businesses. They're still in them. So when you grow up in a small town, unless you work for the chapel, the school, the council, you tend to work for yourself, right? So I've grown up with that. So we used to get one holiday a year, because my dad was also the superintendent registrar who marries people, and you don't get any time off.
Yeah, every weekend.
Every weekend you've got to be fully booked.
Busiest man in the town.
I could say my father's married about 4,000 times. So
no, that's everybody in the village then.
Everybody, yes, and outside. There's a few stories there. But so you grow up in environments where it has been a basic lesson for everything I've done going forward, is that if you don't bring the money in, then you don't get to go on holiday. You don't get a nice car. You don't get to.
You've always understood where the basis of everything is.
Because
regardless.
if you grow up in that environment,
that's all you know.
You see where's dad now? Oh, he's had to go to work to finish off doing work. My mum had a hairdressing business which was really successful. She started that when she was 20 years old.
Nice.
Was employing 6 people at one stage. Remember, we're talking about the 60s now.
Yeah. And that was probably 6 days a week, no?
And when people were, when young women did not get funding off banks. In fact, when my mum went to the bank. They turned it down. My great aunt, who was a war widow, had to put a house as collateral for my mum.
For the hairdresser.
For the hairdressers. So she was, my auntie Nini, I still call her Wales's first female business angel. There we are.
Mm-hmm. Wales's first proper bank. Do you know what I mean? Understanding entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine your aunties or uncles putting their house on the line?
Yeah. It's almost like, it's never gone away though. Like, you still hear about people, we're going to have to secure it against your personal home.
Yeah.
And I feel that's probably very common
like I
still.
say, that was, 60 years ago, it was very unusual. And it was basically to buy the property at the time.
Yeah.
Because the business, and then to buy the kit to go into the business, all these big chairs with the massive hair dryers on them that you see. But so after that, I sort of went through started getting jobs at different universities. So I worked in Durham. I've worked in Dublin, and then came back to Wales in 1996, became the first professor of entrepreneurship in Wales. Then I was 29. It was a bit of a shock. Far too young to be a professor.
Did you almost write kind of this?
No, I didn't, because to be honest with you, I was happy to stay in Ireland, and then this opportunity came.
Yeah.
And, for anybody who's Welsh, this hiraeth, you want to come back to your home country. You want to work there.
Yeah.
And, I still look back and thinking, the sliding doors moment, if I'd said, if I stayed in Ireland, because Ireland was going through such a boom. And we'd set up a lot of stuff there to promote entrepreneurship. There wasn't that much interest, believe it or not, in the mid-90s. But it was called the Celtic Tiger. That's what they called it. And Ireland went in that period. And when I got there, it was starting. But then, I remember the big headline, the first £1 million house had been sold in Dublin. I mean, you can't get a flat in Dublin for $1 million euros now, about the same. And it was just the whole economy was taking off. And all these young people who'd had to leave Ireland, they were all coming back to take up all these jobs, particularly in financial services and software and pharmaceuticals, which are, that were driving.
You hear a lot of the head offices are now based out of Dublin, right?
Google. Yeah, I mean, Apple have been there for ages. I mean, Apple have, I think the Irish... the strangest story about Apple, I think, with the Irish government is that the EU called it anti-competitive because obviously they've been paying low taxes.
I was about to ask you, is that a skill set thing or a tax thing?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah,
but they're like an original company.
The original tax in Ireland was 10%, and then they had to increase it to 12.5%. Right. So it's interesting now. Our corporation tax will increase to 26% soon, right?
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, can't anybody. So, but it's still 12.5% in Ireland, and what they've done is been able to drive that. I think the challenge, I suppose, is that it's only recently you've seen Ireland sort of develop its indigenous entrepreneurial base, particularly in tech.
Yeah,
but that's inevitably going to happen when you attract a lot of highly skilled engineers, in particular.
Yeah.
Who eventually will have an idea and will leave.
Yeah. Were they doing anything before you got there as far as entrepreneurship?
No, there wasn't much going on. I mean...
And this was still early. What year was this?
Well, even in academia, this was 94 to 96. And even in academia, when I got there, there wasn't... I organised... God, how old was I then? About 28? Yeah,
only a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and then, it feels like that though. But we organised just to get everybody together, and there was about 40 academics who were doing some work in entrepreneurship, and they'd never come together before. And then we got, the Bank of Ireland involved, and they said, "Shit, we never thought about doing this before."
Yeah, getting everyone who's thinking differently.
And then we got a whole range of entrepreneurs in, and all the entrepreneurial organisations, and they started thinking, this was your ecosystem.
Yeah,
but they never talked to each other. Right. And I think that's one of the keys if you're going to set up any sort of ecosystem for entrepreneurs, is that you get all the different actors to talk to each other and understand what they do. So entrepreneurs should talk to the finance, and the risk capital people, because then they get to understand. Government should talk to entrepreneurs and finance.
It should almost be a lot more readily available, kind of, all the resource you need.
I was just saying, if that model's already been done, completed, and is working well in Ireland, then why aren't we doing that here?
Well, we tried, but we can go on to that later.
That's another episode.
Yeah, probably. But so I've been, like I say, for 25 years, I've been involved in, researching and teaching is still my great love. I absolutely love teaching, and I haven't been able to do as much of it as you go up the sort of
it's not that you fell
ladder of executive ladder and all this bollocks, but when I absolutely adore teaching. There's nothing better than being in a room with students for 2 hours and just basically talking entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
with
Seeing
them.
how excited they're getting. It's not that you fell out of love with it. Obviously, you've seen so much change.
Everything else was,
blowing up.
got busy.
Yeah.
So, I've always tried to do things outside of my main job. Why? Because I think taking what you learn through research in particular and teaching and taking it out and learning from the external world and taking it back in again is really important, to have that sort of
real life experience
circle, and bring that experience in. So, every time I've taught, we used to bring people in, very successful entrepreneurs, to talk to the students. When I got to what was then the University of Glamorgan, which is now the University of South Wales, we set up something called the Welsh Enterprise Institute. Why did we set it up? Because nobody was interested in entrepreneurship and small business in Wales. At the time, it was they were all trying to bring in these big multinational companies. Just down the road here, you've got the hangover from the old Lucky Gold Star LG, which is now being used for another event. But, all the economic development budget went towards attracting that. So there was nothing to support Indigenous businesses. And when we talk about the days of the WDA, the Welsh Development Agency, which obviously was very successful, at one stage was bringing in 25% of all inward investment in the UK into Wales. What we mustn't forget is that it did very little to support Indigenous businesses. And, any successful country, any successful nation has to be based on its homegrown entrepreneurs and how you develop those. Yeah. So,
looking after the small guys.
Oh, absolutely, because the small guys become the big guys,
Yeah. But if they're forgotten about at the start, it's almost like they've not got the stepping stone.
Yeah. And, that I think if, when we started, we were trying to look at how to do that. And that's where the extent where the Fast Grow 50 came from, which is now celebrating. I've got to stop making these dates now. I'm making me feel old.
Your age.
25 years this year.
That's amazing,
so
isn't it?
We've been going for 25 years.
Yeah.
And
this year you take it national, yeah?
Well, we're taking it national this year, but we've done it in Wales for 25 years. And when we started it, the one reason we did it was for that. I just felt there wasn't enough celebration and recognition of Welsh businesses that were doing so well. And I remember the very first list we did, and it was going back and looking at it. One of the companies on the list was actually IQE now, which is obviously one of the leading companies in Wales.
Yeah.
And they were what are they called? Epitaxial products, I think they were called at the time.
That's so nice to look back at.
It is. And looking at some of these, and they, some of them have gone, some are, actually, like IQE, is still there. We've had Admiral on there, for example. We've had a number of substantial businesses that have been recognised through this.
Yeah, because of your platform, though.
But it was, I'd like to say, what a great idea, that I came up with this. But it actually is built on something from the States called the Inc. 500. So every time I'd go through the airports, if I was going to the States, I think they're called, is it Barnes and Noble, the actual news agents there.
Yeah.
So you'd always pop in there and they'd have these magazines there, which are called Inc. and Entrepreneur magazine. I'd always buy a copy. You could never get it in the UK. And so Inc. used to have this thing called the Inc. 500. So it was the 500 fastest growing companies. So when you read their stories, and you go, wow. And then, of course, the bulb went on and said, oh, we should do this. It was originally going to be done in Ireland. I was looking at it the other day, I've still got the proposal to do it in Ireland.
Yeah. This year it goes to Ireland, no?
No, it'll be in Northern Ireland. We want to do it in Southern Ireland, but in Southern, I can't call it Southern Ireland. I lived there for long, the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
But we want to do it in the Republic of Ireland as well.
Is that just because kind of from the success in Wales?
Yeah.
Like how good, and there's almost an opportunity missed for places that aren't celebrating?
To be honest with you, I should have done it years ago.
Okay.
It's
Is there a reason why, or do you think just life?
I'm just too busy, and you can only do so much. There's only so many hours in the week, and then you focus on other things, and now scale-ups, as they call them, they're now called fast growth companies scale-ups, and everybody's into scale-ups. You have a scale-up institute, you have all the accountancy houses. I'm interested in scale-ups. But we were doing this 25 years ago, and there was little interest. And but what I'm proudest of about it, after 25 years of doing this, the proudest thing is when the entrepreneurs still say to me, that gave us a rocket boost being on the Fast Grow 50.
Yeah.
Being on the Fast Grow 50 changed our business. It gave us the contracts. It gave us open doors. It did this. It gave us the recognition. People started seeing us for what we really were, right? Which was a successful Welsh business that could trade outside of Wales and actually grow quickly. Yeah. And it just opens up those doors. Right.
For anyone listening, Dylan, or watching, what's the criteria for Fast Growth 50?
So Fast Growth 50 is basically, you have all these awards, and I'm involved in a few of them, is that you don't judge. Normally it's judging. So you come in front of a panel and they say, oh, this is really good, and we'll give it to Ollie because Ollie's a brilliant person, blah, blah, blah. Right?
It worked once.
Yes. So it did work once. So what we do is it's basically on increase in sales.
Okay.
So it's on the percentage increase in sales.
And that's got to be within a certain time
so
period.
if you've grown from, if you've got million sale in the base year, 2 years later, you got 2 million. You've grown by 1 million. 1 million over 1 million is basically grown by 100%.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So we do that. So, you can criticize it because it's just based on
numbers.
On numbers.
Yeah.
But remember, it's the market.
Yeah.
And the market in the end, as you know, being in business, it is about numbers. It's about number of customers. It's about how you make, and we don't measure profit. We do measure profit. We don't count profit. And there's a number of reasons for that, because particularly, a lot of companies will reinvest when they're growing.
Yeah.
So
their profit might have gone, but it's actually still in the business.
Basically, you will be reinvesting a lot of that into the business as you grow.
Yeah.
So, and there's all this thing, it's turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. But actually, most of those businesses, we do measure. And ironically, what we find is that the profitability growth in the majority, I'm going to say the vast majority of Fast Growth 50 businesses is higher than their turnover growth. Okay. So they are driving profitability. We just don't measure it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, if I'm trying to get 50 companies to put themselves forward, and when I say put themselves forward, we will not put a company down if it doesn't want to be part of the 50.
Right.
Why is that? They may have their own reasons. They say, listen, we're growing now. We don't want to be on the radar of our competitors. We'll be in next year because we will have hit that growth this year. Or some say, well, actually, the converse is saying we've had a difficult few months.
Yeah, you'd be strategic.
And really, things are really difficult now. We don't want to highlight the fact that we were successful last 2 years. We've just had, we lost a major supplier 3 months ago. Yeah. So
everyone's got their own reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what we do, when we say we're the the 50 fastest growing firms out of 260,000 in Wales, well, yeah, I'd say we're probably 50 out of the 70. It all depends. Yeah. But to be even
But it's 50, a celebration, isn't it?
It is a celebration. And one of the things we do, we pride ourselves, it's our methodology. We do everything possible to make sure we have the most accurate list. Yeah. And I know I've seen other lists, it's just, they just throw stuff in and it doesn't really matter, but it is important to us. Yeah. And that's why we're taking it national now, because we're working with, one of the world's biggest banks, UBS. And UBS wouldn't be working with us if it wasn't for that. Yeah. So for the last 2 months, which is why I've got bags under my eyes, is I've just spent time just scouring, company accounts, looking at the way we do it. We have different ways of identifying growth companies, not only by turnover, because there's different ways that you can see how a company's grown. Yeah. And
it's important to you though, because obviously they're 25 years in. Do you know what I mean?
And we've got to get it right. And we're taking it to 7 other parts of the UK. So Scotland, north of England, Midlands, East England, London, south of England, and Northern Ireland. So we do more, but there's only so many awards you can do in a year. And we may change it next year because it's our first time. Yeah. But that to me is a big thing, because I would never advise any business to go from 1 customer to 8 customers in 12 months. Yeah. And yet that's what we're doing. Yeah. And it is a big challenge, because the logistics alone of organizing one of these things is amazing. And
obviously this isn't your only project that you're doing now. You've freed yourself up a bit. I say freed yourself up is the wrong kind of term.
No, I just
you've created more time to create.
What's the thing? Work expands into the time allocated for it, doesn't it? So, but what I'm finding really fascinating, I'll come on to the startups in a minute, but what I find fascinating with the Fast Growth 50 companies is that, going through these companies, and what we've always found is that everybody thinks fast growth is about tech and fast growth is about startups, or shall we say young companies. But what we found out over the last 25 years is that, the average age of your fast-growing company in Wales is about 12 years old. And we've had companies that are, the oldest company started in 1783. So I suppose the original founders aren't involved in that. But we found, we've had family-owned businesses, we've had employee buyouts. So it's not necessarily young companies.
Yeah, or new companies.
Or new companies, right? The other thing is that sectors. So everybody's, we all talk about fintech and cyber and, all these sexy technology-based sectors. And yes, we do have a couple of fintechs in there, but vast majority of companies are B2B, consumer, retail, construction, manufacturing.
Almost like a day-to-day.
Yeah, I mean, they are. They're great at what they do. And when they use innovation and technology, they use it to make their business better. They don't actually necessarily, develop it. At the same time, last year's winner was Creo Medical, which absolutely blew my mind. They grew by over 9,000% in 2 years.
Wow.
From about 280,000 to over 25 million. And, what they've done is they're revolutionizing basically medical instrumentation to deal with colon cancer. And that's a Welsh company.
Yeah.
And, they've absolutely... And, when we were talking about this, the biggest barrier they've got is actually getting into the NHS. The technology's there.
Yeah. Having someone to listen.
Basically, I'll give you an example. So normally on colon cancer, imagine if you've got the camera, but if you're watching this in black and white, you won't see it. Okay. So basically, imagine a tube, right, which is what a colon is.
Yeah.
So you've got a piece of cancer. Normally, what you do, it's like a normal tube. You've got a bit of rust there. You basically cut it out and you solder it together, right? Yeah. The biggest problem in doing that is that you can imagine if you're trying to seal it up, if you don't do it properly, 10% of colon cancer victims die of sepsis afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? And also, if you're doing that, you have to then be on you have to be on a drip or a colostomy bag, and all this stuff has to be done. So you're in hospital you could be in hospital for another 2 months.
Right.
You could be on treatment for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So it's the old way of doing it.
Yeah.
What they do, they have an instrument that goes in through one hole, shall we say, gets into the colon, and then basically uses different intensities of light and energy,
like a laser,
to burn it, burn out and then to seal it, and then
pulls back out.
Pulls
so
it out.
There's no detaching.
They have had, I kid you not, patients who have done this under local anaesthetic.
That's insane.
Right? Who are playing golf in the afternoon.
What?
That's how good. And the mad thing is, when you look at the cost difference between a patient coming in and doing that for 1 day versus 4 months of care,
and it's the instrument they have. That's where you got. You only use it once, obviously.
Yeah, but why are people listening then? Or
they are in other countries, and this is the thing. They're adopting it elsewhere.
That blows my mind, though.
And we've got people seriously. You've got a situation in some, shall we say, trusts or hospitals where you've got one person making a decision, and they don't like it. They've done it the old way.
They don't know what a startup is, or they don't even know what.
But it's the technology,
and that's just one procedure.
Yeah, and that's one. Yeah,
and that's Wales.
And that's what you have is that you do get a revolutionary company like that coming along.
Yeah.
But it's for them. It's not now about the technology. It's about access to the market, and their market is the NHS.
Yeah. So they're exporting their product at the moment, and
they're training doctors all over the world to use this.
Yeah. That's so mad, isn't it?
It'll be something that you only exclusively get private.
Yeah.
I almost think with stuff like that, but
actually would save in the long run. Yeah, hundreds of millions of pounds.
Why don't people want to listen though? Like, someone's created a problem.
I suppose because they're young companies and it's really difficult.
It's breaking that mold. Who cares? Like, look at the product.
But it's procurement as well.
Because Tony's always supplied our scissors. We'll buy them off Tony.
Yeah.
That's government kind of contracts. That's where they kind of fail.
So if you're talking about that sort of innovation, it's not about just what they do. It's about how do you get them to break into the market. And I can absolutely assure you, they are not alone in this. There's probably hundreds of businesses that could be making a real major difference in so many fields if they were given access to these government contracts.
Because they actually care about what they're doing. So they've created a product to help people.
Yeah.
But yet their issue now as a business is, hang on a minute, we can't open this door. Like, why?
Exactly.
Why can't we? Why is it not getting shipped to NHS? And then anything left is going outside of the UK.
Exactly.
We hear it every episode. We bring in the new guest, always an entrepreneur, business owner, and it's the red tape that puts people down. that people struggle with day to day.
Yeah. How does this get broken then? Because obviously is it just time, or is it the person in charge almost, he needs to pop his clogs so someone new can come in?
I think we just need to change the way that, I think the biggest risk with government, obviously, because it's public money, there's always, the default is that whenever a private sector company is involved, they're trying to screw us over, right? Which, if you're in the defense industry, probably true. But in most of the cases, I think you've got to look at what that company can offer. And there is a lot of innovation going on, particularly in the NHS, but it's internal. And there's so many companies that do have these solutions. And as we know, the NHS is getting to a position where it is becoming ungovernable, unmanageable, financially unsustainable. And so the best way to do that is to improve, the efficiency, the effectiveness of that. And the best way to do that is to look at, where the pinch points are and to get these private companies in, because they have the solutions. Yeah. I've been going through, lists of all these startups over the last 2 weeks. And so many of them are now in medtech, who are finally, finding these little niches that if you put them in there, they're going to transform that part of the business.
And there's so many of them.
Oh, there are.
So many problems to solve. Niches, but the issue isn't the problems to solve, it's the problems are being solved, but they can't almost implement this amazing idea, which is just bizarre.
It is, yeah.
You must see so many, like you said, different companies with all these problems.
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's about the problems. I think you mentioned the fast growth, and then 7 years ago I came up with this idea of the Startup Awards. And why did I come up with Startup Awards? Because we were sitting at a Fast Grow 50 dinner, and one of my good friends, Roger Maggs, Maggsy is one of the most successful venture capitalists that ever come out of Wales. And he was sitting there and he said, I love this, absolutely love it. I want to sponsor the award for the fastest growing startup. And I went, no, we don't do startups. We don't do startups. You can't have startups because we've got to have a minimum turnover. And then he said, well, why don't you do startups? And I go, oh, bollocks, you're right. Why don't we do startups? So after that evening, went back, checked, and there was nobody. There was a UK Startup Awards, but it was done by a magazine. It wasn't that high profile.
You almost get the people that are doing...
very small scale. And so I thought, well, again, let's start doing it in Wales.
Yeah.
So did it in Wales, did it very differently. Well,
how many years was it in Wales?
Well, we've done it's the seventh year now.
Seventh year.
So it was 6 years in Wales before we took it national. But, you've been there. And the whole idea was your awards for startups have to be quite different. So it's about putting in somewhere like the Depot in Cardiff, which is a cool place to be, street food, craft beer, everybody's relaxed.
That market isn't black tie and round tables.
Yeah, no, that has its place, and everybody enjoys. Like everybody, I get my.
Get your glad rags on.
One thing about but the problem is you always forget to dry clean the thing. Then and the day before you take it out, I think, oh my god, I haven't worn that since last time, and you can see I haven't. So when we did that, I think the aim of that was to celebrate new businesses. Yeah. So with the Fast Growth 50, we were celebrating entrepreneurs that had gone through their journey and were going through this growth stage. Yeah. But it was all these new entrepreneurs. And what's been brilliant about that again is we've seen a few of those graduate, to use the term, graduate onto the Fast Growth 50 from the Startup Awards. But we did in Wales, and then last year decided, right, let's bite the bullet, and we went national. We went from 1 to 9 last year.
Seems like a common theme.
We added one more this year.
You put yourself on the list.
Well, we might. Well, we'll see. Yeah. But what was fascinating about that was knowing all the entrepreneurs I do in Wales and all the startup businesses, how brilliant they were. And you went into every region, and they were the same people. They were just living.
You're in a room full of the UK. Innovators and disruptors.
They were it was just incredible. And the response we had was really, encouraging, because when you do something like this, you're basically landing, like we landed in Scotland, and you're thinking, who are these people that have just come here? Because you would have thought they'd have Scottish Startup Awards, wouldn't you? Yeah. But they didn't. Yeah. Right? So we did it in Glasgow. We had about 300 people turn up. It was great. I think it was our first one. So I was really nervous to do this place, and we had the same sort of was down some back alley, and there was like this warehouse thing, and we'd all travelled.
That's depot though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and we'd travelled up to Scotland. We didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for, but the evening went great. Everything went as well as it could do, and you know, I think the problem is that I'm if I have one of my traits is I'm really bloody impatient.
Yeah, I can.
So I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking, oh, you know, it's going to be as big and as the Wales Startup Awards. But I remember when the very first Startup Awards we had about 220, 230 people in the depot, the old depot now.
Yeah.
And it was pretty full. And I thought it was an amazing success. But I suppose when you've had the depot we did, and we had 500 people there, and thinking, we need 500 people in Glasgow. Yeah. But it's never going to happen, is it?
No, not on the first one.
It starts again.
It's not even going to take 2 years. It's going to take 2, 3, 4 years to build this thing up until, you know.
But you had 200 for the first one.
Yeah, we had 250, 300, I think, yeah. And then we went to Newcastle, we had the same numbers, and, you know, Northern Ireland was disappointing because we had about 100 there. But that's always been a difficult nut to crack. I know other people have run awards in Northern Ireland, and even the awards they have, they're quite small.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you've still got 100.
We've still got to do it, and I think it's important.
You got 100 good people innovating, and
absolutely. And what was important, you know, we've just been going through the list now. God, there's an incredible startup scene, particularly around Belfast, and particularly around tech in Belfast. And you know, they've got 2 really good universities there, Queen's and Ulster University, and there's a lot of stuff coming out. But you know, this is reflected everywhere. But you know what? but the real sort of, shall we say, if you're looking at for the comparator, it's London.
Yeah.
And again this year, right, the number of entries we've had so far from London, the breadth and depth of those entries is incredible. So we talk about all the other regions, right?
Yeah.
And there's some great, but London, to me, just you look at some of the businesses there and the startup scene there is pretty incredible. And that's, I think, that is our.
Is it condensed? Like I think of London as like there's loads of stuff going on, but it's condensed.
But what you find is that I suppose there's a big market if you're in any sort of consumer or retail sector anyway, or any B2C, haven't you? But also there's a lot of B2B companies that set up there, and particularly tech companies. It's and also because you've got a big financial market there, you'll get a lot of, shall we say, B2B serving that market. Very high level, high quality.
People are innovating.
Management and financial consultancy and whatever.
For what's on their doorstep almost.
But yeah, so the Startup Awards, last year we had 900 finalists.
That's massive, isn't it?
It was.
How many applicants?
We had 2,000 applicants. So,
wow.
And, you know, we've got a week and a half to go now on this year, and we're up to about 1,800 applicants already. And anybody who's been on the awards will know that, it's a flat line until you get like 2 days before, and everybody panics
jumps up
and tries to put their applications in. It becomes
submitted the night before.
Curve. Yeah, usually, yes. Mm-hmm. So, but what is great about it is that we collect a lot of data on these companies, and what we're capturing, which I need to do something with this year more than I've done last year, because I need to spend more time looking at these exemplars, because there's a lot of lessons to be learned from a lot of these young companies and how they've got there. And also, I think most important than anything else, we've started doing this, and we'll build on in this year, is to build that community. Yeah. Right?
So you're not just waiting for an award.
You know this, Ollie, both of you know this, is that, it's not only you that's faced the challenges of starting a business and growing a business. You know? Oh my God, I must be the only person in the world whose main customer hasn't paid me on time. No, don't worry. Nearly every business goes through that.
Every business goes through it.
Oh, I'm having a problem with one of my employees, They joined the company, now I'm growing. We've outgrown them. What do we do? Well, everybody else has had that. So how do you create that community where people share their experiences and most probably learn from each other? Because if you can do that, I think, to me, that's the holy grail.
I have a question for you, and it ties into the answer of what you've just said. But we had a guest on last week, and they shared a statistic. I don't know how factually correct this is, but Newport houses one of the largest, on a yearly basis, the most startups created in the UK. But actually we'll also have the most failures in terms of new business as well in the UK.
I wouldn't trust those statistics because there were two two outliers, and nobody's ever explained why. That the whole of Wales had declined as the UK number of startups 2 years ago.
Right.
But Newport and Rhondda-Cynon-Taf had gone up.
Come on, Newport.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Somebody said it's all taxi drivers are registering in Newport, through Dragon Cabs. But
is that common though, as in the statistic of?
Yeah, but it is. Newport has been, because I'm the one who produces statistics, so I know.
That's why I thought we'd have the perfect answer
I know
right
where
now.
she got them from. So it's me. So, but yeah. If you go back, Newport's always been exceptionally good at starting. I think the infrastructure and the support hasn't been there.
Yeah.
I mean, the old, what was it? The old sort of enterprise agency here.
Yeah.
You've had these small buildings.
Excuse me.
But I think if you're looking at the future of Newport now, if Newport Council wanted to really transform the city centre, you've had some good stuff happening in the market, for example, and that's a great investment. But you've got the Electricity Foundation there, you've got the university there, but you look at all those empty shops in the high street. Newport has more empty shops.
There's no link almost.
I would, rather than, not everybody wants to be in a cool tram shed sort of environment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of business who'd be happy to take, the old Wildings, convert the old Wildings into a sort of startup centre where people can just come and start up their businesses. You would attract a lot if they focus that.
So my understanding of the high street, because it's a really good one, and we're all Newport based, so it's probably worth having a smaller in-depth conversation on. But there was a panel that I was sat in front of, and they were all saying the future of Newport and what we could do for the high street. They were saying we've got too much real estate than we need based on what shops we have. So they were going to condense, and that, for me, that sounds logical. But then they were saying that the high street's privately owned, and unless they do compulsory purchase, they'll never be able to generate business back into the high street, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we've had this problem, haven't we? I mean, you used to have the problem in Cumbrian Road.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you transform a place which had really run down because you had one guy owning all the properties and wasn't prepared to change? But I think you can, the one thing the council does have, it does have powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes
but it doesn't want to do it though, I feel.
It is.
I don't think they realise what's on their doorstep.
Well, we try. If they do have, because I was part of the process, we do know who owns all the properties in Newport.
Yeah.
And it's going to become a fact that maybe you have to use a stick around the carrot and say, well, if there's a building is empty for X number of years, then now you should be paying more rates on it, not less rates.
Yeah. Because if you're not actively, like you said,
they're not. They just sit on it, waiting for somebody to come along.
Yeah.
Like they've done, they say, we'll knock it down and we'll put some flats there. So a housing group may come along, they'll sit on it. A lot of these are in London or even overseas.
Yeah.
So knowing who owns, and you know what, to be honest with you, I doubt if they even know if they're on their portfolio.
Yeah, there's that scale.
There's a misconception as well with shops. Obviously, I'm big into the shopping centre world and retail. So everyone sees empty shops, and even shops that have been successful that have closed. But the story behind that is just because it's empty, the company that have left there, they're still probably paying the lease for the 10 years. So there's a period where you can't actually do anything with an empty shop, which is that awkward period. But then again, if the council approach them, like...
They could dress the front of the shop, though, right?
I'll give you a perfect example, which was in Cardiff. And so I won't say where it is, but there was this building, and downstairs is a bar. And the guys who basically had invited me over to talk about sort of looking at co-working space, because as you know, I'm chairman of a co-working company called Town Square. So we were looking at this, and I was in their building, and they were saying, and it was a lovely building, it was too small. And they said, what sort of building do you want? And I went, and I was by the window, and I pointed over, and I went, that's the sort of building I want, where you've got something on the ground floor, but I know those top two floors are empty.
Yeah.
And I went, we own that building. I went, oh, that's interesting. But the company downstairs, which is basically a bar, which is owned by one of the biggest sort of pub companies in the UK, they've taken the lease on the entire building for the next 15 years. So what you're telling me, those two floors are empty, And believe it or not, I have tried to get in touch with that company for 6 months.
Right.
And I have tried to arrange appointments, and I said, guys, it's empty. We will pay for this.
Yeah.
Right? And you will have this. And obviously, you're paying.
You think they'd be on it in hospitality, right?
I would have thought they would be, particularly as
because obviously
I know the bar doesn't do that well either.
Yeah.
But the rateable values on the space.
Yeah, because they're paying rent and rates on it. So, but it is a challenge, and I think sometimes the property people, and these are based outside of Wales,
there's a disconnect.
There's a complete disconnect, and I think that's, to me, when we did the review, you find out a lot of these buildings are actually owned by property companies or venture capital funds. They've bundled up, say, 200 buildings, of which they owe 20 to Newport.
Yeah, they just look at it as a spreadsheet.
They don't know whether
they've never laid eyes on it.
I think Newport's a weird one, though, because obviously you've got Friars Walk, and half of that was never even filled from day one.
Well, exactly.
So if you're a company looking to go into Newport, what's more attractive?
And the comments I get about Newport, whether you're a business there, because I hear businesses coming and going, paying customers coming and going, is parking, isn't there? The infrastructure's not there.
Yeah.
I think people are just, if you go into Cardiff, you have to pay to park, no matter where you go. You go to Cwmbran, you're lucky, the parking's free, but then actually what people don't realise is the tenants and the shop owners are probably paying a higher service charge, which kind of counteracts that.
Of course.
So there's a lot to it, but ultimately...
But I think Newport is in a position where there's... trying to put this diplomatically. There's only one way it can go, right? Which is up.
Yeah.
But it's getting the right strategy, because we all talk about these, I remember coining this phrase, the data city phrase about Newport, where, for example, if they moved the ONS from that greenfield site and moved all the employees here, that could have a massive boost. So why hasn't it been done yet?
Sure.
Because then you could sell that off quite easily. Government could sell that off. So again, that's UK government. So UK government could actually move the ONS there.
And everything that comes into the centre.
Admiral is gone, so you've got a purpose-built building for the ONS.
I was just going to say, you've got one right opposite the trains.
Yeah. Do you want this nice shiny one? Because yours is a bit crap. Like,
we'll take a commission off that.
And isn't it better? Because then you don't have everybody in the ONS driving in. They can all take the train in.
But then they're buying coffees, they're buying lunch in the town centre.
I mean, one of the challenges is, with the university that I was formerly an employee of, was that obviously when Newport had when it was the University of Newport, there were 8,000 students. And when the universities merged, the decision was made, rightly or wrongly, to move and close campuses. So obviously, first one was the Altrincham campus was shut, which were business engineering. Then the Clean campus was shut, and then obviously you were left with the shiny building. At the most, there were about 1,000 students. Wow.
Still to this day, isn't it? It's not much happening.
So the challenge you got there is, and a lot of those students, because what was chosen, it was basically education students who were all teachers training. So they were out in schools. Social work students, they were out doing social work. So the real challenge for any, if you want to take advantage of higher education, it's a spend. And if you think about it, each student spends £10,000 without rent and without fees. So if you think about how much a student will spend a year, it'll be on food, on clothes, on drink, or mainly drink. So they'll spend on that. So
that's a mad
for
figure,
every,
though, isn't it?
for every, you think about it. It's
it's not easy to bring money into a town.
Yeah, it's a huge loss.
And for extra 1,000 students, £10 million of income coming
That's
into
crazy.
Newport.
And we've got the infrastructure to manage.
Well, I think that's the problem. The infrastructure has been lost because obviously the expansion of higher education has happened in the last 10 years. And because Newport has lost its students, there hasn't been any investment in student housing. So if you look at Cardiff over the last 6-7 years,
it's a booming thing.
It's massive. Every piece of land you have in the city centre, they've put student apartments there.
HMOs everywhere now, student lets.
Well, this is the thing, but you can purpose,
But there's a reason for it, obviously.
But if you're going to have 1,000 students coming in,
we start building tomorrow.
you just go to any builder who's in student accommodation, like Watkin Jones or something like that, and say, guys, we can do 1,000 students. They may not even do 1,000, they may do 500 to begin with, but they're going to fill them like that, particularly if they're overseas students who have got the money to come in.
Yeah, before it's even built almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Back, then it's, it's not easy, but I think there is massive potential here in Newport, and it would be nice to see if you had that focus on entrepreneurship and innovation as the key part of that, and drive that forward. And
that would be the takeoff.
For the council to turn around and say, look, we are going to become the most entrepreneurial city in the UK.
And push it.
And then how to come, because you've got the Celtic Manor here and Wesley Clover behind you. You've got the Alacrity Foundation. Right? You've got the building blocks here. They're very small to begin with.
No, you just need someone to piece it together.
Yeah, I feel like everyone just needs to come together,
and create some buzz and some excitement around it.
And once the council are on board, it's like there's no barriers or red tape, and actually everyone benefits, everybody thrives. But,
you've got a really forward-thinking chief exec. I know the new leader. She's put the future of the economic future of Newport at the heart of her thinking. So regardless of the politics involved, you've got both the officials and the politicians. They are focused, but I suppose it's how you get to that point. So maybe having that vision would help focus everybody, not only the local authority, but everybody else involved.
Almost like a committee.
Yeah.
Oh God, no! We're
talking
not
about
another committee in
additional
Wales.
things. So obviously you freed up all your time, and now you've filled it. What's a typical week for you? How do you split your time with all the different things you do?
Well, it's priority now, isn't it? Because we're launching our Fast Grow 50 in March, and one of the things I was really determined to do before we even go out there. So people say, "Oh, isn't it easy to do these lists?" Well, it is and it isn't, because you can do a lot of research, but we found it's finding those hidden sort of companies, because you don't have to declare your accounts publicly if you've got a turnover of less than 11 million.
Okay.
So why would you?
Yeah.
The hell want to know how much your company's making?
Yeah.
Some do.
And like you said, there's all these different reasons why.
But could people, if people want to be part of those lists, then it's how do you identify them? So we're in the process of forming a relationship with the ACCA across the UK, where we'll be working with their accountants. And that's what we found really useful, is because the accountants know who they're working with, their companies. They'll know one of their companies gone from 2 million to 8 million. We'd never pick that up unless we've.
That's a job in itself.
We can, if you look at assets and whatever. If cash has grown in a business, chances are
you're doing well.
Customers, So, but it is hard work to do all that research. Particularly, all I've done for 2 months is going through individual P&L accounts, which. When you're dreaming of balance sheets, that's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that I think, that's where I've been focused most of my time on.
Yeah.
But what I really enjoy is things like this. I must say, I do get asked a lot to have cups of coffee with people.
Yeah.
Like we're having now.
Yeah.
Fantastic Greg's breakfast sausage bar.
Morning episode recording.
Absolutely. But it's great because, just to be able to have.
You like the conversations almost.
We'll spend half an hour with people who just say, look, I'm thinking of starting a business, or I just need somebody to talk to, or this. Yeah. And that really is the most enjoyable part of my week.
Yeah. You almost always, even though you've got a busy diary, if someone got in touch, you'd almost always try and make time.
Well, yeah, of course, because, we're all part of this entrepreneurial community.
Yeah.
And I think of late that, again, how do I put this diplomatically? There's been occasion when I've seen where people charge for their time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll say, that they'll turn around and say, well, if I introduce you to such and such, I want 1.5% of whatever money you bring in.
Right. Yeah.
And I understand that process, and it's fine if
like your black book is your value.
If that company turns around, I'd be a multi-millionaire if I'd done that. But I think it's wrong, because I think as part of a community, it's paying it forward.
Yeah.
And it's about a bit of give and take, and it's not like I'm not turning myself as a Don Corleone here, where basically people, I do favors for people, and then 2-3 years down the line I want them to do favors for me.
But you actually care, I think, is the message.
But it is. It's really important that we do share this.
Yeah.
And I have seen instances where this is happening, and I
good things come of it.
I feel really uncomfortable about people charging for their time because they feel they can.
Yeah.
I mean,
when
if it becomes a formal arrangement, fine.
Yeah.
And I've been an exec of businesses, but that's because I get paid for giving my advice as an exec. Yeah. But when I'm sitting down and saying, look, there's a friend of mine he's just sold his business. He's got a bit of casino money. He's told me he wants to invest in a business. Go and have a word with him. Next, all of a sudden, it's like, this guy's invested £250,000 in my business. Yeah. Now, I could turn around and say, well, hold on. Where's my cut of that?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
naturally, it
I
could
need
be
my
one.
£5 cut for doing that.
Yeah, it could be one of the businesses from the awards, or
Yeah, well, of
it's just
course.
an introduction to
Of course.
someone actually is doing great things.
And they will, because through the awards, they'll naturally come to me.
Yeah.
And then I'll just pass them on to other people. But I think that's important. And, I'm not really talking I'm talking more as I would say an entrepreneur and the capitalist here. If I was a capitalist, I'd be saying, I need to monetize everything. I'd be like a lawyer and say, sorry guys,
You do see that
I'm going to charge
social
you
media, though,
£500 an hour for this conversation.
On social media, though, they'll say like time's money, and they'll press you, and everything that you have, they'll say to monetize. But as you rightly have just said, it's not always the case, and there's a level and balance to it. Ollie and I, we attend a networking event every Wednesday morning, and you don't. For making referrals, you don't get anything directly out of that, but actually, yes, you do, because then they're going to refer you in future. They're going to.
I think it comes back to that, sort of like just being in a room of like ideas fest.
Yeah.
Wanted to touch on it anyway, but just you go into an event or you go into a networking event in the morning because you're in the room of people you want to be around that can help you, but also are going to help your business.
And you never know what might spark you.
Yeah,
I mean, it could
the best
be,
things come out of conversations. Just
I have 1,000 ideas every day. Which one
should write a book. When's your book coming out, Dylan?
No. The one I've been promising to write for 20 years. Yeah. So, but that comes from all that interaction.
Yeah.
And you can do it through reading or podcasts or listening. I'm listening to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book. If you want a book
we'd love a book recommendation.
If you listen to it, because McConaughey actually is reading it, and he's got this Texas drawl.
I listen to it on Audible, and it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I'm listening on Audible now, but it's you can pick up things on business and everything from almost everywhere. But to me, I think if I lost that opportunity to talk to people, that would be my biggest regret, because it's just great just to be able to, one of the business I worked with came to see me the other day, and they want to raise funding, and they're doing this and that and the other, and we started talking, and all of a sudden, because we were talking and bouncing ideas off, the solutions were coming, and you could see them coming through, and I think it's great for me to be able to do that. I'm not saying I'm not the font of all knowledge, but I do know people who are. And it's more about being able to act as that. Yeah. It's like the, was it the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, isn't it? Or I'm sure there's somebody that I know only 2 degrees off from me. Who said, if I said Stephen Bartlett, right, for example, I've only got 1 degree because I know somebody who knows Stephen Bartlett. So I can, it's that sort of thing that's always important.
Yeah. Everybody knows
2 degrees now.
Yeah, 2 degrees.
Yeah. Stephen Bartlett now.
So we're a bit closer.
Yeah.
So what's your next big thing? Because realistically, looking at like your career path, you'd think, you got loads of time, but you filled that now. So are you going to make time for anything you want to do?
I was supposed to be taking Mondays and Fridays off.
How's that going for you?
Very badly. I'm even working weekends. I think I went to bed at 11:30 this morning because I was still scraping the internet for startups in Scotland.
In Scotland, is that just busy? Almost like this has got to be done for this event.
It's got to be done, and maybe I should have done it when I have time. But it's there's one thing there's two things I think that I think I really want to do. Right? Yeah. Well, there's actually it's 3 now. Okay, it's gone to 3 already.
That's all right. Might be 4. I think creating a proper UK-wide community is a real challenge, right? And there must be a better way of doing it. And I'm still mulling over that because, we've got a community now, about 20,000 entrepreneurs. Okay. And it's how they can interact across the country.
It's still difficult to do it because entrepreneurs are notoriously difficult to pin down.
Yeah, sure.
So what's the best way of doing it? I'll create an app to do it. And they'll go, another app,
But they're still busy.
Yeah. Secondly, you mentioned writing the book, right? And
exclusive.
Oh my God! I've been thinking of doing that for ages.
You must have notes.
Well, I have written books. I've got lots of stuff. I'm very proud to say I do have a best-selling textbook that's had 3 editions, but on entrepreneurship. But I want to do a more practical book because,
as in now what's important and what people.
The one thing I think is really important, and there isn't one out there now. People will probably write it very quickly now I said this, but there isn't anything that profiles that is individual stories of entrepreneurs, and there's so many great stories out there, and I think there's an opportunity to get those stories, and they don't necessarily, it was funny, I was talking to Fran, my partner, about this, and I was saying, we could do something. I could do something really simple, and I'll just do the top 10 entrepreneurs. We'll do the Elon Musk, we'll do the Sarah Blake, we'll do the Richard Branson. And she said, that's boring, because everybody's done that, right? Isn't it better to actually do something on those entrepreneurs that you work with, that are growing, that are really interesting.
Almost real life kind of relatable.
Amazing businesses that have come across in the Startup Awards last year from all across the UK. The ones on the Fast Growth 50 that are going to be, again, not only the ones in Wales, but the ones we'll discover.
I was going to say, you've already got your customers there.
So, yeah, hopefully, yeah. So that, that is something I do need to find time to do, right? And the problem is I'm also keen to keep on doing academic work. So there's a couple of papers, but writing academic papers takes so long. So I've got to sort that part of my life out.
Yeah. Is it time then? Sorry.
It is time. And I've got to manage my time better. And all entrepreneurs are shit doing that, as we all know, right?
Yeah. So third thing?
And the third thing, I really, really do want to think about whether we should get a team together to apply for this British Business Bank funding. So basically what's happening is the British Business Bank is allocating 130 million to Wales for a fund to support entrepreneurs. And I think the usual suspects will be applying for it. Some of them already said they will. And I don't think much has changed in Wales over the last 20 years. And I think one of the biggest problems you've got is that every time, my biggest criticism of the funding regime is that the entrepreneur is never put front and center. And I used to argue this when people would say, what's wrong with the system? We got all this money. And I said, no, the problem is every decision you make on funding should be looking at that business and put that business at the center of everything that you're doing. Because without that business, you don't have a job because you can't fund it if that business isn't there. Yeah. So it's really having an entrepreneur-focused fund. And I've, Dom McGregor, who is Stephen Bartlett's former partner in Social Chain, I met Dom, and he's set up a fund now in the northwest of England to do that. But I think it is important that you have a fund which puts entrepreneurs, at the centre of everything. Yeah.
Is this basically for startups or people that need some initial funding?
Well, basically? I don't know, because if it's a British Business Bank, they will
have criteria.
They will have the criteria, but I reckon there'll be up to 5 million of an equity fund. Yeah. So that could be anything from a startup up to a scale up, particularly, some of the fast.
But just a pot for someone with an idea or with a business, but talking to someone who gets it.
But I think what's important is I think we've got enormous potential for businesses to grow quickly in Wales. Yeah. We've got some amazing businesses. But every time I see, the funding they've had, there always seems to be restrictions. Yeah. There always seems to be
it's not what's
conditions.
Best for them.
It's how do we create something where, yes, if you're a venture capital fund, you have to operate like a venture capital fund in making the returns. But that's the whole point of a fund. The fund is to make returns. And I supervised a PhD at Glasgow University, where this fantastic bloke who'd been in the venture capital industry for years, he compared the US and the UK venture capital industries, right? And the management, what got me is the management was very much the same. The scale of the US is far bigger. But what I found, again, after reading this, 100,000 words on this 3 times, right, was that the entrepreneur never seems to be at the heart of that. And I can't see why, because if it's all about making a return, you need to make sure that those companies are supported and nurtured and developed properly.
Yeah. How do you vet that?
Oh, it's so difficult. God, if I knew that, I'd be sitting in my villa in the Bahamas.
Because as we're talking, I'm just thinking, how do you put a parameter?
It is difficult because look, these guys go through a venture capital business will go through hundreds of business plans every year. They'll choose maybe 10 to invest in. Yeah. Of those 10, 3 will probably make a little bit of money, a break even, but that one will probably make him 100 times return on their investment.
But he doesn't know that when he's investing.
You don't know. But also, is it about the one? Yeah. Is it about changing that model maybe where it's...
We can help 100.
All of them can make, and we never know.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses like as like I said, you can imagine a business. It's got the most brilliant business plan possible.
Yeah,
and then COVID hits.
Yeah, sure.
And then
no one could ever plan for.
It's a B2C business. Yeah, it's buggered.
Yeah.
Because there's no way it can pivot, right? Or
which, from your point of view, is why, from the investing point of view, investing in 10, investing in 100.
But that's the thing. Look at all these massive businesses that will take. Look at the airline industry. They say they're bouncing back, but the hits they had. I mean, it was Remember, we had the biggest recession since 1703 in the UK during COVID.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking
quite a big one.
Quite a big one. The economy dropped over 20%. That's a massive hit. We're talking about recession now, where we will drop by 1%. And people are worrying. Sure. And that'll be for a short time.
Yeah.
What they forget that during COVID, only 2 years ago, this isn't 50 years ago, only 2 years ago, we dropped by 20%. So our economy was operating at 80% of what it should be, right? Yeah. So to be in that position, it's really difficult to choose. But you know what? You back the people and the team.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we're very, and also if the team's not working, what we tend not to do here, but they do elsewhere, you bring in the right CEO.
Sure.
And basically you still have particularly if it's technology innovation, you'll have the technology and the innovative brain behind it, but you just bring somebody in who can manage a business. That is the most difficult part here in Wales. Yeah. So if you go, I've been traveling particularly to Massachusetts, I've been traveling to MIT a few times in the last few years. It's one of the top entrepreneurial universities in the world. The ecosystem in Boston, Massachusetts is amazing. The reason it's amazing is because you'll have people who will have gone involved with a startup at 20, been part of that team, and then when that business sells, they get a bit of cash because they got a bit of equity in the business. Then they set up their own business, and then they go and set up. Then they sell that business, and then they set up another one. Yeah. By the time they're in their early 30s, they've gone through 3 IPOs. Yeah. And so they know how to manage a business. Yeah. Those people are gold dust. Yeah. We don't have that many around here in Wales. And and would they come in, or even in the UK? Yeah. But I reckon, the great thing about Wales is it's a great place to work, a great place to live, right? We're a small community, which is really attractive to entrepreneurs. Yeah. Yeah. Right? We've got some good universities with access to skills that people coming out, or they could do better in certain areas. It's relatively cheap to live here compared to, say, London. Sure. And the prices going up, but it's got, communication, not absolutely brilliant, but
no, but like you said, it's all the blocks are here.
Look,
the foundations.
You can be in the city of London now. Yeah. Right, with the Elizabeth in 2.5 hours. To get from San Francisco to San Jose, which is the heart of Silicon Valley, you don't have public transport, you have to drive. I've been on the road. Yeah. It's 3 hours. Okay. Right? So if tech people in the number one innovation hotspot in the world are prepared to drive 3 hours, it's not that much of a thing for us to go from Newport or Cardiff or Newport to the City of London. You can do it in just over 2.5 hours.
If it's worth going kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and I think we have our advantages here.
Newport
we look at it as a disadvantage, but in America, they'd say, 2.5 hours, that's nothing. No. Yeah. Just get up at 6 to get there for 8:30.
My business partner's from the States, and we talk about going to the beach. It's a half-hour drive from here, and he goes, it would be a full 8-hour drive for him to go to the beach where he's based.
Exactly.
I love Barry Island.
Yeah. but it is about that, and I think like I said, I've been in this game now for over 26 years here back in Wales, but we're always. I'm always been a half full person, right? But we just really need, as I've tried to do, and I'm continuing to do, and will continue to do, is celebrate and recognize these amazing people who take that risk and set up their businesses. Yeah, I mean,
what a journey!
I've done it before, right? I've been involved in businesses before, and some have worked, some haven't. I remember having to put 100 grand to secure finance on a business, and it was touch and go. That was my on my house. That was a big thing. Not many people would do that.
Sure. But you believed in it.
Well, I did. I was the chairman of the business. We were employing 50 people. The business needed it for a short time, and I was thinking, right, okay, I'm sure it'll be fine. But things can always go wrong.
Sure. Yeah, it's always a risk.
But now, at the grand old age of 56, having left, and now doing this on my own. Well, not my own, obviously, with my partner, but it is, you know, it's for the first time you're in that position where I don't actually have a monthly check coming in, which is challenging.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it makes you understand and appreciate, which a lot of people don't. And I think you guys, you know, you do this every day, but it's about going out there and basically doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
And I think every entrepreneur does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be in the game if you didn't work hard. You wouldn't be in the game if you weren't trying to do everything for your business and for the people who work in your business. And on the back of that, that's where the growth of the Welsh economy will come.
Yeah.
And there's all this stuff going on and this, that, and the other, right? In the end, a nation's economy is dependent on its entrepreneurs, right? And it's as simple as that. And if you don't support your entrepreneurs, your economy won't grow. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
We'll clip that.
So as far as, give us, we got a couple of questions for you, but just for anyone that doesn't know all these different projects that you're going, what 2023, what's the calendar look like for everything you've got going?
The calendar now is that...
Get your notepad out.
Right, so obviously it's now, February the 15th.
Yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day +1, yeah. So February the 15th. So on February the 24th, we close for the Wales Startup Awards, which, like I say, hopefully we'll get beat last year's 2,000 entries.
Oh, yeah.
And then we then start the awards at the end of April and finish at the end of June. So those are 10 events all over the country. Let me go through them very quickly. It's Glasgow, Newcastle, Birmingham, Cambridge, London, Southampton, Cardiff, Bristol,
Scotland,
Belfast, and Glasgow.
Yeah.
Wow, well done.
Or Newcastle. I mean, whatever. Anyway, so we got 10 there, and then that goes to the end of June. In between then, we once we've finished the process of, we're starting on fast growth.
Yeah.
So we have until the end of July to identify 50 fast growing companies in 8 parts of the UK.
Yeah. Which is a job in itself.
So it's in a job in itself. Like I said, we've done a lot of the work already.
Yeah.
So we're meeting today to review this. And then we will have 8 events then from October to the end of November. And the worst thing is the Rugby World Cup is on, so I'm gonna have to fly straight out after the Cardiff event, which we're hoping to have at the CIA. Right. It's our 25th anniversary.
Amazing.
To get 1,000 people in there to celebrate entrepreneurship. Not fast growth, I think. We want to celebrate entrepreneurship. Yeah. And then in between, as you sort of alluded to, we've got my partner's business is doing a thing called Ideas Fest, which we did last year, which is a cross between a festival and an entrepreneurial gathering, I suppose.
Such a cool concept.
And it was brilliant last year. I
really
wasn't involved. Because I was able to not have to do anything.
You enjoyed it even more.
I enjoyed it even more because normally, you have to be behind the scenes and, this is happening. And obviously I wasn't doing any of that.
I wasn't able to attend, but from someone looking over the fence, it looked amazing. Yeah. And then the feedback on the back of it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to have Stephen Bartlett, John Caldwell, Michael Acton-Smith, and a whole range of other amazing entrepreneurs.
For the first.
We had, it was, and we had 2 sunny days, which is always...
The weather was insane. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So what's really important, we're doing it again. I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to say this, whether let's put it this way.
We'll get Fran on.
Yeah, but she will say the draw this year, Stephen Bartlett was a draw last year. Yeah. The draw this year is going to be as interesting and controversial an entrepreneur as Steve is at the moment, right?
Wow, nice.
So, this person will have a lot to say, and I think it's...
So it's been confirmed, but it's not out there.
It's not out there yet.
Okay.
But again, there's a whole range of other people already confirmed.
Loads of different. It's not just for anyone who's never been. It's not just
about a big tent. It's about, we had a pitching competition, for example, for food and drink businesses. Yeah. Michael Acton-Smith had to do it in a small tent where he just talked about how he developed this, I
remember watching him and
and it was
almost like a 10 by 6 marquee, and there was
people sitting on hay bales outside. Yeah.
I was stood at the back with Gary from Source, and it was just like, this guy's in this tent, and I was like, but that's what I love. It's almost like you walk around and like someone who you couldn't even get in a room with if you tried. Like, get your pens and papers out.
People come for a beer with him. We were sitting down, like Michael said, two things I love most is entrepreneurs and festivals, and I got both of them together in one place.
Amazing.
And he did have these after event parties that went on till 5 a.m, and yet he was always the freshest when in the morning. I don't know, everybody else was sort of bleary-eyed.
Yeah, make sure you get your tickets for Ideas Fest. We'll put the link in the...
It's funny because from day one of the podcast, it's always been up there in our kind of our journey, our road plan is probably the best way to actually go to Ideas Fest and host Close of Play from Ideas Fest.
No, please. I mean,
it's just kind of that, you know what I mean? Fran's absolutely smashed it because I hate going to like a conference room and sitting. It's almost like going back to school for me. I'm not that person, but like you said, at Ideas Fest, it's not just, you got the music, you got amazing speakers, but just everyone that's there.
You can just sit down and have a chat with complete strangers.
The opportunities that could come from it, or just the people that you meet, or someone saying, "Oh, when I did this worked for me." You don't get that on like normal networking or like organised events. So
and to me, it's all about the content, like anything else. It's about getting the right speakers and the right people, and you get that right. It doesn't matter where you put it. But having it in a festival is pretty cool as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, when the sun was out, there was some beer drunk. I remember that. But yeah, that's ideal. We've got a couple of questions for you to finish off because I know you're a busy man. Craig?
That's fine.
You kind of answered it in a nutshell, but I'm going to string it back at you anyway. So for anyone listening, whether you're an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, because you have a wealth of experience, obviously, and you get to see it from a different perspective. You get to be the guy who sees all the data behind the scenes, which really puts you in a really amazing situation. But my question is, if you had one piece of advice to give to anyone listening now who's in a nutshell maybe about starting their own business, or if they're an entrepreneur and they're struggling day to day, like we hear it so often where people like to bury their head in the sand. They don't like to confess with their problems and such. But what would your one piece of advice be?
Well, for those who are thinking of starting a business, just do it.
Do it.
Just do it. Even if you're in a job already, we now call them side hustles. Right?
Yeah, everyone's got a side hustle.
Right? Just do it. Right? The one thing the most important thing is if it doesn't work, fail and fail fast. That's the thing. You don't need to just test it out. Yeah. Go out there, start your business. That's the most important thing. Because if you don't, you'll be 5 years down the line, you'll still be thinking about starting.
That's it.
So just do it. And if it doesn't work, who cares? Something else will come along.
No, it took me 2 to 3 years to figure this out.
Yeah, but it'll happen, right? But just do it. For those in business already, as you say, talk.
Yeah.
There's an amazing community. And if you're not part of a community, join one.
Yeah.
The one thing about entrepreneurs is that every entrepreneur that I met, they're happy to share, they're happy to talk, they're happy to help.
Yeah.
Right? That's the community we've always been in. That's what I always find incredible about the community, is that the community is prepared to give, right? For free, right? Their experiences and their expertise. And I think that's what's great about it. So if you are in a business and you're thinking, well, I don't know, I would say, come talk to me, but I've got a piece. But please, there are communities out there.
Yeah.
Join the community.
Yeah.
And just there's a lot of people. And you know what? If you're thinking, and it's a really odd thing, and I'll give you an example from my career on this, right? So I was over at MIT. Like I said, it's one of the top universities in the world. One of my academic heroes is a guy named Ed Roberts. And Ed was one of the first guys to look at technology entrepreneurs in the 60s. So I know all his papers off by heart, and got his book and everything. So I was over at MIT, and I'd been a few times, but he hadn't been there. And Ed's in his late 70s now, early 80s. So I went over to see him, and basically I had the book. This 1984 book, High Technology Entrepreneurs. So I went over and I had the book, and I said, excuse me, Professor Roberts. Oh, call me Ed. And I said, look, I explained, I did my PhD. Your book, this book was my Bible, all your readings and everything. And he said, when did you do it? And I went, I did it here. And I thought, it would have been great to work with. And he said, well, you should give me a call, boy. I would have taken you on. You could have come over. And I was going, oh, no, why didn't I do it?
You didn't ask.
And he would have. He probably would have said, come over and spend a couple of months with me here, right? And I think that's a vital lesson.
Absolutely.
In that if you want to get hold of somebody, why not just
We always say, don't we? You don't ask, you don't get.
It's come out a lot.
give them a call?
really.
If you're thinking, I'm not saying, poor Steve Bartlett's probably getting about 10,000 calls a day, right?
Yeah.
But if you're thinking there's somebody in my industry
Or
who
someone
I
that can
think
help.
I should call, why not give them a call?
Why not?
I think there's a massive stigma, and like we've had so many people on, and everyone's the same, and like you're a clear example of like you're so busy anyway, but it's like you don't even if it's 2 weeks time, you'd be like, I'm busy,
It
but
doesn't matter.
if people don't reach out, like even just from listening to the episodes on the podcast,
I've got to. Number one, I've got to have exercise. So basically, come for a walk with me.
Yeah.
walk and talk with
Walk
coffee.
and talk is great. Or I've got to have a cup of coffee. So why should I have it at the desk and I need a break, have a cup of coffee? People are prepared to do it. I'm going to need half an hour off doing the work. So I'd rather talk to you on Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's always these opportunities out there. And like I said, if you're thinking like, the CEO of the major company in my industry, why not try and get hold of them?
Absolutely.
Look, all they can do is say no.
Yeah.
I really like the
bugger
walking
off
idea.
or whatever.
Yeah,
You're
walk and
instilling a
talk.
good habit there.
I've seen that somewhere, as in like you achieve. I don't know.
It's what I did during COVID.
You'll probably know the
I did during
stats.
COVID all the time. How did I get my bloody... I used to get 12,000... I don't get it anymore. 12,000 steps a day in, because I'd always schedule my calls, put my headphones in, because I know I'd be half an hour on the phone, sitting on my ass, on my desk,
Otherwise,
right? Otherwise, go out and do it. But even better, you say to somebody, right, let's go and have a chat.
Yeah.
So just walk around the fields in Cardiff and then...
Yeah, and what
cameras,
comes from
something
it,
like
do you know what I mean? Just like you
exactly.
said, just the conversation. And that's kind of at the basis of our podcast, of in like, you have a conversation, you don't know where it's going to go.
No.
There's no salesy, and like
No
the
script.
stories and just finding out about people. And my brain works as in like someone could be listening and actually like, they will reach out, or they will start a podcast, or they will start their business. And if we can help one person,
that's
great.
it.
But it's just the conversation is what I find interesting.
I mean, the other one thing is the never give up.
Yeah.
So, have you heard of Sarah Blakely? So she's the woman who came up with Spanx.
Oh, yes.
Right. So, and it's worth reading her story, because the number of times she was rejected
Yeah.
because she'd cut away these sort of pants to make the Spanx.
Yeah.
She said, I think I can do something. And all the manufacturers she went to, 90 to 100 rejected her. And in the end, one said, yes, we can do this. And that's the other real thing.
explosive
It's that
moment.
perseverance
Yeah.
to keep on going, to not accept no.
Believe in yourself.
Never accept no. If you believe in your idea, right, no matter how crazy it is, right, because a lot of these ideas now, which are mainstream, were crazy ideas
Yeah.
a few years ago.
But just because everyone knows about them and talks about them doesn't mean it was
so,
normalised.
this, podcasting. Like the podcasting, seriously.
No, it's new.
Who the hell would have thought nobody's going to listen to a bunch of people talking bollocks for an hour?
Yeah.
But it's the biggest, fastest growing sector of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I went through the same hurdle, but it took me 2 years to get to this stage.
Well, there we are.
The my one question for me to end. So, you've got current day knowledge, everyone you've ever met, everything you've ever learned, but it's day one of your first kind of business venture. I give you £1,000. What do you do with it?
I'm really excited to hear the answer to this, because you have all the insight.
Oh my God.
Where do you see it going?
Well, it depends, isn't it? First thing I would do is if I was selling something, I'd buy stock.
Buy stock, yeah.
Always buy stock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Because you believe in your product.
Well, no, you buy stock, don't you? I mean, if you want to, the whole point about a business, the definition of entrepreneur there was a French economist, Jean-Baptiste Say, always at Richard Canton. There's two economists, but they're all the French definition of entrepreneur, right? They do have a word for it in French, is basically in between, right? So it means the person in between. It's Del Boy. It's the buy and sell.
Yeah.
So anybody says Del Boy's not an entrepreneur, actually, technically and classically,
He was a great one.
But this is what it is. It's about buying and selling.
Yeah.
And you make a profit. That's what everybody does. We either buy or sell our products or services, our knowledge, anything. So that's the key, is to invest that into something that then gets you going. So if you can invest in 1,000, that £1,000 in something that you can sell for 2,000.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got £2,000 that you can then invest to make 4,000, to make 8,000. And that is the key.
Yeah.
And use that money just to do that. Invest it in what the basis of your business is.
Okay.
And you know what? There's all this stuff about, we've got to have a website, we've got to have this. No. Whatever your basis of your business is, just bloody do that. If it is about selling online, then invest in a website for it. But you can do a lot of this stuff. And the other thing is there's so much free stuff out there now.
Yeah.
That you don't need to spend on much. But it is, to me, if you give me £1,000, I'd invest in stock.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Honestly,
where's the time gone, eh?
Honestly, that's the least I've ever spoken on the podcast. It's because I was getting all this gold from my own business and my own knowledge. And
everyone's going to be writing down everything you said. But just on a personal note, I think you're, well, from myself and Hollywood, like such an inspiration kind of for what you've done, and a massive advocate for entrepreneurship. And obviously, you know what you've achieved, and I'd have to say, like, you should be proud of yourself. Like,
thank you so much.
And how passionate you are about it.
I feel like
really is.
Everyone listening will be like, actually, like, Dylan's the guy.
Dylan's the guy.
I hope not.
So, but yeah, thank you very much for your time. For anyone who, in my head, I think, how could people not know? But for anyone who doesn't know about Ideas Fest, the Startup Awards, we'll put all the links below and make sure everyone can get tickets to anything that they want to go to. And more importantly, enter these awards. Surround yourselves with other entrepreneurs, get involved in the community, and also just follow what Dylan's doing, because he's doing absolute great things with a massive passion.
If I have time to do it.
Yeah. And if you fancy walking with a coffee, chop him a message.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to have a lot of walks and coffee over the next few minutes.
Next time I see you, be like, I'm doing 20,000 steps now. Thanks to the podcast.
You want to fix that knee?
Dylan, that's close the play.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
really
both.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Until next time.
We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.